Welcome to Must Have Coffee, Finding the Ground Within. And we are not just talking about coffee. This is Sonia Auld.
And I am Alana Marie. This is our friendly podcast designed to awake, energize, and uplift your everyday life. Good afternoon. Today's subject is judgment. What is judgment? What does it mean in everyday life? Is it good? Is it bad? It's a very big subject to talk about, but
Yes, it is.
let's start it off. So Sonia, tell me about judgment for you. What does it mean to you, and how does it show up in every single day?
So judgment to me is two different things, right? Judgment that I put on myself, and then judgment about others. And that happens constantly throughout the day, right? It's something that we tackle as human being. It's normal to have them, right? It's normal to have judgment and have some judgment for others. So to me, those are the two things really to me, to myself and others are the ones that I really kind of want to talk about today. How about you?
Yeah. So when I was thinking about judgment, like I said earlier, I was thinking about, of course, how that relates in my life, but also like on the bigger subject of like, what is the importance of judgment? Because a lot of times when you hear judgment, you think that it has to do with self or others, right? And it does, it has a big portion of it, but I was thinking more of what it means with evolution and acceptance and self-acceptance, because I find that really fascinating. For example, for one is that judgment is completely natural. It is a natural place in our psyche. So how evolution works, it's nature nurture, but also depending on how your brain is developed for humans, we are community based. So that means in our psyche that in order for us to feel safe and secure, we need to rely on our community. And with that, which I think is really fascinating, is that acceptance is really important. And so that actually helps evolution move forward, is the acceptance or the non-acceptance. And so I think that when you think of it in that way, there's a lot of balance that has to come with judgment, because it has to really relate to how accepting you are of yourself to be able to accept others. Yet at the same time, I think that like anything, if we are unbalanced in our in one area, it's not healthy anyways. Like, for example, too much coffee is going to create big problems within your adrenals, right? So like everything has a place, and judgment is one of those areas. I'm not saying that you should be like judging every single person of what's acceptable and what's not, because in truth, when we start judging people of what is acceptable and what is not, that actually is what's creating the separation, and you're actually not able to evolve as much. You become more self-involved versus evolving with the community. So I was thinking about that. And then also what I find interesting is that a lot of people might bring up, well, I was bringing up in my head, how as a community and whole, as the world, are we supposed to go with the community? And I would like to point out that I do not normally go with what is shown on TV, what is everything else, because it is an unconscious and unaware society that has been focused on the acceptance and the denial versus actually creating a more balanced approach. And that is what's constantly being streamed, is imbalance. And so but so that's so far what I was thinking today.
For judgment. I know. So there's so many things, as far as judgment, there's many judgment that you can put on either people, situation, things, many different things. So when from what I hear you say, you're thinking about judgment when it comes to being accepted by other people,
Yep.
and then accepted by the society,
Yep.
right? So, and again, I think many people have heard this many times before, that judgment is really not totally bad, because it's part of how we survive, right? Community, being accepted, being part of a tribe is really that really primal need that we have as a human being, and that's how we survive, right? That's how we survive. If we do not have any community or anything outside, and you're isolated, you are in danger of being being out there in the elements, or being out
Attacked.
there on your own, right?
Yeah.
So there is a huge benefit of judgment, right? And then but that's unconscious, like you said, because that's really the primal part of us being a human being, and being wanting to be accepted and being liked. And but we always evolve, like you say, right? We always evolve up into the next consciousness, that being accepted, then you put discernment. We always go back to this thing. Then you put your wisdom and your intuition in it, so that you can evolve further as far as consciousness expansion and things like that. Correct? Is that what that is? That does that encapsulate what you were talking about?
Beautiful. That was perfect. That's exactly what I was saying.
Yeah. So, man, so to me, okay, to me, I want to discuss about the judgment I put on myself, right? So like so foundationally, right, we want to be accepted, we want to be liked, we want to be part of, we want to be in community. But then, like you said, we will not evolve if we always keep thinking of wanting to be accepted. But unconsciously, and this happens all the time with me too, is that we all do things as far as expressions of stuff that we do. We offer services, we offer ourselves out to the community, and in the form of our talents, in the form um, of our own offering as a wellness professional. And a lot of times that we are opening ourselves up, and sometimes opening ourselves up and being vulnerable out to the community is really, really hard, because we are judging ourselves first, right? Before, oh no, you cannot do that. Oh no, what if this happens? Oh no, what if this so and so says something about you on this thing, and you're not as good as all that crazy crap happening in our head. So that's the judgment that we put on ourselves, and in turn it makes us not wanting to do anything. It holds us back, and then we make ourselves small.
Yes 100%. You know what? And I think that really comes down to, again, like that, going back into that primal point of like playing it small to be not, like, so I think that is a huge deal.
It is.
It really
because
is.
we want to be part of the tribe, and we do not want to stand out, and we do not want to be vulnerable out there and be different. So that's why we put judgment in, and we put ourselves in a box. And it helps us on the primal part of keeping us safe, but that's really the primal thing, where keeping us safe from the saber-toothed tiger kind of that instinct. But really, we're not in that world anymore, right?
No, we're not.
We still have not evolved. At least majority of people, we still have not evolved to that consciousness where we are really not in danger anymore. And the danger that we're thinking in our head is just in our head, that in our head.
Yeah. Well, even I would like to point out is that even the world the way it is now, that primal instinct is like, it is primal. Yet at the same time, that is even at a slower pace evolving. Because right now, if you look at technology, look at everything right now, especially with the coronavirus, if you look at our world, it is asking us and asking you to be more authentic and to really deal with how you feel, you know, like really deal with it. Because I mean, I can tell you right now, I was a poster child for judgment as I grew
We
up. I
all
think
are. We
you
all
know?
are.
And it took a lot of practice, ending of friendships, you know, over, for one, me being too judgmental or whatever else, you know, and it was trial and error, but really focusing on my own personal growth, you know, and what does that mean? Because truthfully is that even when you have no control over who judges you, yet you do not control the other person and with your judgments. So like, if you really understand that and really understand the power of what that is, it really comes down to self-acceptance. It really does, you know, and I have learned with practice to really find kindness with myself, with what I thought was bad and different about myself, you know, and learning to love it. And then, you know what, I'm more loved now, you know, and I feel more comfortable with pushing myself to be vulnerable, you know, and I don't really have as much problems with that anymore. Well, I'm not going to say that because it's constantly being tested. At the same time, what I have learned is that my judgment of myself and my acceptance of myself is really what matters. Because if someone wants to critique me in a negative way or anything, I don't even hear it. Or it's not my focus anymore. And if someone wants to, that's perfectly fine. That's their perception. It's not mine. And it's all you can do is really be true to yourself at that point. And so then when that happens, clarity comes in. And at the same time, like with that clarity, it becomes a choice of like, am I going to be judgmental of myself, or if I'm being judgmental of myself, am I going to judge the judgmental point? Because it can just be a whole spiral that goes out of control. And I can tell you,
and we get into that spiral unknowingly. I mean, it's just like, you know, we talk about this right now, and then later on we will be in that spiral really quick. But that means that the practice that we do every day will get us out of that faster than being in that deep black hole kind of thing. So to me, when you were talking about the judgment and the judgment of others now, right? But let's go back to judgment of ourselves, because what can we do when we are in the midst of that? Because I mean, you know, that is something that is going to keep coming back anyways. We can say we practice so much and all that stuff, but it will still come, right? It comes on a daily basis. And I love this topic, because this has been like my work to love myself more and more. This is really what got me into the path, because I found myself very critical of myself and not really wanting to go out and do things that I want to do, even though my heart wanted to do that thing. But I keep, because it's because of my nature or my nurture kind of thing. When I grew up in the Philippines, I'm thinking, man, in America, I cannot do all this stuff. I have this accent that is really, nobody can understand me. Sometimes I stutter because those judgment. I'm thinking, man, I have something to offer. Maybe and I've done all these things and all. So it's like, well, screw it, right? I cannot really change my accent. I've been here for 21 or 20 plus years, and I still have the accent. So It's not going to go away. It's me. So yeah, it's just accepting yourself and loving yourself, loving on yourself. And as we get older too, man, as women, it's like, I know I've changed so much over the years, physically and everything. And so it's like we really just have to accept ourselves and love ourselves through the changes that we are doing. And there's judgment of others, and the way we can handle our own self judgment is either allow it to control us. There we have two choices: either allow it to control us, or the second thing is really look at it the way it is. It's just judgment, and it's nothing really personal about it. It just comes. I don't know who I heard this from. Like, it's just like your saliva. It secretes saliva. You secrete saliva no matter what you do. It's just automatic. It's just like in your mind, there's always judgment out there, and it's just saliva, automatic and constant, but you do not have to come down to that level of judgment. Just recognizing that awareness, again, going back to that awareness about that. And then judgment of other people, it's just the projections of those people. It's not really about us, but it's really tells more about those people, right? And then we can move on to us judging other people.
It always starts with self. And I think that self-care is incredibly important, but before even that is self-aware. So like the 2 steps that I started with when I was looking, to really make some big changes was, starting off with something, keeping it simple. Like if you are highly critical of yourself, if you are a perfectionist, that was me. Like I would literally like not do things because I was scared to not get it right or get it perfect. And that is a highly critical nature. Is just starting off with a simple practice of what is something that I love about myself.
Compassion,
exactly, one thing, and starting that off with at the beginning of the day, and then take notice of that, of how that shows up throughout your day, because then automatically it's already having you focus on a positive self acceptance and awareness.
And again, so we always talk about grounding ourselves in any of our practices, in any of the daily practice. It's so important to ground ourselves so that into connection of something larger than us. Because the thing with that is that it, hold on one second. This is like driving me insane. Because if we do not ground ourselves, so grounding ourselves practice always gets us into that space of knowing who we really are and grounding in the truth and what we value outside things that are material. And once we know who we really are and we are grounded and we have a practice to do that every single day, the judgment becomes very, very, it softens the judgment, right?
Yes.
So that's what I'm thinking about as far as that. And then the compassion practice. When we find ourselves that we are in a judgment thing, and sometimes we really cannot dig ourselves out of that hole of being judging, because once you are in there, you kind of should expect that you'll be there for about a little bit longer, because it's a momentum of your vibration sometimes that gets you there. And then just again, pay attention to your breath, and then maybe close your eyes and feel some love, the actual feeling of love, when just so that you can get out of that vibration. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally. I'd like to add upon that too, especially if you're spiraling in judgment. I think that one of the biggest things that I had a problem with was when I would spiral, I'd start judging myself even worse about what I'm thinking. And so allow that to really play out with all of it. You know, like what I teach my kids, what I teach other people is like, allow everything, like make it almost like a drama, you know, that's like, oh my God, and just go off and allow yourself to actually get it out of you. Because a lot of times when we stop our judgment, it stays in our body. Mm-hmm. And it's not something like, you know how when you get stuck with a song, like you should sing that, like, and it can be stuck in your head. If you sing that full song, it'll no longer be in your head. So it's the same thing. It's with thoughts. Allow the emotions, because it's attached to emotions and all of everything, to express it fully. Maybe not with others around, but like whatever you want to do, express it fully. Yeah. And then at least at that point, you have the choice to be able to allow it to go. You know, and I think that's a really big point of just allowing yourself to express it. I mean, it's the
so okay, before we move on to saying express it, because some people will take it to the next level where expressing it, where it keep proliferating as a story in their head. That's not what we meant. No. Right? So when we say allow it, your mind would go off and say something, right? Mm-hmm. Notice it, but do not make story about it, and the feeling in your body, and let that feeling go. And we mentioned this in prior talk we have, that the feelings and the emotions only last about 90 seconds. Yeah. So that means that feeling, when you allow it and just follow the feeling in your body without making story in your head, that should only last 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Ideally, yeah. Right?
Yes.
And
ideally.
It doesn't happen all the time. So you go back again and again without, if it gets back again into your mind, then stay settled in your body, feel it wherever it lands in your body, and do not make additional stories in your head. Yeah. And let it go.
Yeah.
And if it comes back again, repeat until it doesn't have any charge anymore. Yeah. Correct?
Yes, very true. That's exactly what that's what I teach my kids. That's what I teach other kids. That's what I teach, is that you need to allow it. And when I say allow it, I am saying express the emotion, because emotions are temporary. Emotions are actually what connects and disconnects. So like Sonia, you said earlier, and in our previous podcast, emotions last approximately around 90 seconds. So that is a very short time. And when an emotion is fully expressed, it leaves in a healthy body and everything else. But majority of times, yes, you need to express it. And so I think that one of a really great way, especially if you're having judgments and you're by yourself, I would even suggest fully acting it out, like physically acting it out. Dance is really important, but if I'm really frustrated or I'm having a really bad judgment, I will fully go into it, throw my arms. And if I'm by myself, or even if my kids are hearing me, they're laughing at me, or I have them do that, because guess what? After I finish it, and after I finish those emotions and thoughts, it's gone, but then clarity comes in. And, I'd like to say, it's really important after you express it is to, in some ways, love it, because I think that's where the spiral happens, is when we start judging ourselves again for having a judgment. And so it goes again all into self-acceptance
and compassion
being an action of compassion. And to me, especially if you are really stuck, like if you take yourself so seriously to the point where you are not able to even allow to have emotions, or you are really judgmental to the point of what's acceptable and socially acceptable, I would even challenge you at that point to fully allow yourself to go into it. And and really see physically what happens, because I can guarantee you, you should be able to laugh after it, or at least start practicing, making a practice of that. I'm not saying doing it like, I mean, it would be kind of funny if someone did that in public, but it's something that I will do here, especially now. And I'm being confined inside. There's going to be more expression, because it's expressing itself.
So it's like emotions expressed in physical form. That's why movement is very, very important. Any type of movement, dance, any physical expression of stuff. That's why I do yoga, because after I do yoga and many, many different forms of practices I do, I feel instantly better, right? On that. So about judging others. I mean, man, you look at social media, well, I always have judgment, but I keep it to myself. I don't. So anyways, sometimes I do have, I do have judgment, I'm a pretty judgmental person, I think. But, you know, it's again, what you do with that energy is what matters, right? It can stay in your head because it's just really normal, but what you do with that is the most important part. Judging others, the thing with judging others is sometimes, you know, we do it and without us even not knowing all the details about the situation of other people, you know. So it's like, I don't know the whole entire detail, I really cannot judge that person. What it is.
The thing is that here's something that I'd like to say about judgment, is that it is a very singular thought when we are not a singular thought type of being. So it's still one, it's very, very confined. It's an almost claustrophobic type of area. And so I try to stay as open as I can, and I try to look at one thing and maybe judge it in as many ways as I can, or take an idea or what someone says and try to find as many different meanings as I possibly can. Because it is one of those things. And like I said, you know, I am definitely not perfect with judgment. Oh no, I'm not. It happens. It is natural though. I like to point out it's natural, but you know, I think again, it is so important to really be aware of how you're feeling again, and also like how that works. Because like, you know, I've had, you know, working with young ladies, especially like in sports or trying new things, there's so much judgment that happens and vulnerability that comes with it, right? And as a educator in that area, having to lead young women into learning how to speak vulnerability and also teach the support of it is a really big point. And I think that when I look at and I'm judging somebody, it's not true. That's the biggest point. It's not true.
Most likely it's not true, because we are missing so many details. You know, that person might be having such a bad day, right? We do not know what's going on with their lives. And the thing with that is, when we judge, we come down to that level of energy. Right? So what we're judging, we are in that level of energy. That means that we have that in us. What we are judging. So that means that we stoop down to that level when we're judging. We are in that same energy when we're judging. And so when we are doing that, then it's really, we're not understanding the whole picture. And when we are not understanding the whole picture, that means that you are choosing not to look at other things outside what you believe in. So to me, so there's an example that I've been really going and studying many different practices. So I've gone to this training of shamanic practices, And so this lady, she's an elder from one of the native tribes around the state, or around, not around the state, but it's some other tribes outside Alaska. But she is so very open. You know, if you ever meet someone and you can feel the energy of that like light in that person, and she's so, I've been learning so much from her during that period of time I'm training. And this is a recorded event or something like that, and she talked about the shamanic practices and other things that they've been doing on that particular modality. And she mentioned, this is not like yoga, or because yoga is just movement practices. And I'm thinking, oh man, I respect that person, I still respect that person, but it really tells you on something that you're judging something that you do not even know. Because to me, yoga while I was listening to her, there's so many similarities, but she just doesn't know the practice. But you really cannot say something just like that when you do not know what that practice really is. So when she was saying that, it's like, oh, this person that has so much light in her, there's still something that she's missing, right? And it doesn't really take away the fact that I still love and respect her. It's just that we're all human. We have judgment, and that's my point, right? Everybody has judgment. So
it's not like I said, it's just from one source. Of our judgment is at a time and place, in some ways kind of almost like a timestamp of like what our experiences are and what we are viewing it on an emotional point too. So it really comes down to clarity. And like one of my goals in life is to be as clear as possible, especially like, and how that goal came was from self-judgment and being so critical, and really looking at the losses of my own personal growth and everything else. And with that, what I have learned is that you need to allow others to express themselves, and they will, like, giving them a space to be able to not just judge themselves, but also express what they are thinking. Because that one moment of judging, the second you lose a person is when you judge them, negative or positive, because it's still not a fully accurate statement, because I can't say this is how one person is. I mean, even with my children, like, they are their own people. And so it is my job to not put on a will of who they are, is to allow them for who they are. And so
I would like to clarify that a little bit more, because we go back to that primal instinctual part of us where we want to stay safe all the time. There are some judgment that is so valid, right? If I am come across this person that makes my hair on my arms raise, I will never go to that person. That judgment will stay, because I trust my instinct. Or if there's that person that has like so much dense energy, and I just do not want to deal with that person, and I cannot explain why, but in my hearts of hearts tells me and warning me not to deal with that person or something like that, I will listen to myself. So that's really, so there's a balance that you really need to think about when you're on the judgment piece. There are some judgment where you, again, going with the flow. We talk about that in one of our talks, right? Going with the flow is that discernment piece of things, where when you feel like you have to bear separate path from one focus point, and that that action of separating path is really coming from deep within, and you really cannot explain it explain it. Like I'm having a hard time explaining it. So it's like it's very instinctual, it's very intuitive, and
Yeah.
you just have to listen to yourself. When it's no, it's no. Deep within, it's no. Right? To
Yeah,
me,
because
that's
it's,
what I
yeah,
do.
trusting yourself is essential. Like, so even with like intuition is the way to be able to connect to yourself and become more aware on the physical, on the emotional, on the mental, and on the spiritual. There's different awarenesses for each person, but ultimately it really has to come down to trusting yourself. And so I mean, it
And
happens all the
trusting
time.
your
Yeah,
own, and
your
trusting your own
own
judgment.
judgments. Yes, yes, because like I simply, this is what I do, because I'm a physical mental, like those are my main areas of awareness. Those are like my first areas. And so if someone's saying something and I disagree, or if they're giving me information and it doesn't feel right physically in my body, it's not like I just throw it away, but it's like, okay, that doesn't align with my thoughts and feelings, because it's physically doing that. So I need to trust myself. But then I allow that and remember the conversations. And so maybe it will apply at a different time. But simply, I trust myself first.
Yeah,
I trust
definitely.
my judgments first above anybody else, because
Yeah,
guess what? It's going to make the better decisions, because judgment also has to do with decision making.
yeah.
And so the more you are aware and you are deliberate with your awareness levels of what it feels like, and also questioning what it feels like in some levels, like, and not knowing that you're not being triggered.
Yeah.
Like
So clarity again. So going back to the clarity of your intention always goes back to being clear of where your judgment and decisions are coming from, right?
yeah,
Where are you coming from? Are you coming from a place of fear, or are you coming from a place of that lighter kind of energy thing, right? Like
yeah,
love or joy and things like that. So you just have to be clear. And the way you get clear on that is going back to the practices that you do every
mhm,
single day, grounding
yep,
yourselves to who you are, grounding to yourselves to what you value in life,
yeah,
and sticking to that. If you listen to that and that's your map in your life on
mhm,
how you make decisions, then you are awesome. You're good to go, right?
yeah.
All just decisions are coming from that place, then you are on the right path.
Correct. Yeah. I would say, like, with wrapping all of this up, it
Yes,
always
because it's
comes,
like almost
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. It all comes down to practice. But the two practices that, like, even what I did today and what I do almost every single day is an intentional practice. And it doesn't take long. For one, the first practice is first, like, the intention of what you're intending to put out there. Like, and it's not like, oh, I'm gonna go make money. It's like, how can I help, or whatever that is. It doesn't have to be so direct, but you want to have something where it's for your full wealth and health of your body. And then secondly is creating a loving, like, one practice thing of what's something that I love about myself, and maybe adding it on it every single day. And then you have a focus at that point, because if you focus on, like, something that I love about myself, you're going to see it throughout the day being expressed. Today
Yeah.
mine was, I love my brain. I love how I can think of so many different areas and so many different things that would be highly complex to others, but to me it's very simple, and I can get lost in that. And
Yeah.
so that was like, I was having this conversation of judgment of how us all could go, and I was loving every minute of it, because it became a wonderful experience of what I was expressing. And so it comes down to, from those two simple practices, at least I think that if you did those, you will see a happier, healthier approach in your life.
Yeah. So to add to that, so that is something that you can do beforehand. So
Mm-hmm.
that, when maybe it lessens the judgment throughout the day. But if you find yourself judging yourself and others, what you can do is to really think about it. It's whether you have two choices: you allow it to control you, or you can use that energy to look at it for what it is and not take it personal. right? And if you keep finding yourself in the loop of being judgmental to yourself and others, then it's time to love yourself. It's time to just find compassion. It's time to sit, put yourself in a corner, your nose in the corner, be quiet right there until you feel the love. Right? Because
no one puts baby in the corner.
Exactly. We can put ourselves in the corner and say be quiet. And then thinking about when we keep judging others, think about that we do not know the full details of their lives, that we really cannot fully understand what other people are going through unless we walk in their shoes, right? And then when you are in there, again, the same thing, you just sit down, let that emotion go through you, even for 90 seconds. Again, what we're saying is do not express it like that it keeps what is it? Proliferating. It keeps going on and on, right? They do not add into the story, but feel the emotion in your body. Let it go, either through movement, either through shaking, do yoga. Hey, come to my class. And then that's it. And then come back to your normal activity. Read, sleep, do something else, get you out of that vibration.
You know what, actually too, I would like to say is because it really, like, I gave the beginning of the day, like the beginning start of the day of how to be able to focus, but it's also really important how you end the day. And so, like, one of a really great practice too is to journal right before sleep and write out your what you went through with the judgments, but then also like underline the areas that you're judging and how you feel about yourself, and then also then start writing a practice that is loving for yourself. It is okay for me to feel this way. I am validated by this way. I allow myself to feel this way, and it is okay to feel this way, because I think that when we focus so much on like how we are grading ourselves with our judgment, we really need to do is relax, take a breath.
Yeah. a lot of this is just relax. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what actually movement does for you. It really relaxes everything. It gets you out of that mental space and into your body, right? It gets you out of your mind and into your body. Is what it is. So I think that's pretty much it. We've given them some practices to do and some things to think about. Is there anything else we want to talk about? I think we beat this horse to death.
I think we have. I don't really, I mean, I've already said how you start the day and creating how you end the day. Loving practice, self-love is really important. Self-acceptance, but I think we've covered it. We really
and meditation is always good, and we can talk about meditation at some point in our time. There's like forever we can talk about it.
Oh man,
but that's pretty much it. And thank you for joining us, and it's a very, very good conversation. I love this conversation, and give us feedback. Put something in the comments if you have a question for Alana and I. We'll be happy to answer all your questions. And then we'll be back again next week, correct?
Yes, we will. We'll see what the next subject will be about.
I don't know. We'll
figure it out. Anyways, so let's wrap this up. It was wonderful. It was a great conversation, Sonia.
It is very nice conversation.
Okay, so everyone, stay grounded and absolutely you.
Wherever you are in the world, have a good morning, good day, and good night. Ciao.
Bye-bye. To connect, email us at musthavecoffeewithus@gmail.com or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Must Have Coffee With Us.